Hello, hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. This is a totally random video because I just thought about doing this, something that is very much recent read adjacent kind of book. I'm pretty sure this is just a normal recent read video, but me being somewhat, I don't know, a little bit chaotic these days, I just decided, last minute that I wanted to record something because I feel like I want to talk. But I hope that this video is not going to be long because I want to sleep very soon. So, yeah, here it is. And so this video I'm planning to talk about books that I have finished so far that I've not mentioned in my video. Not mentioned in my channel, and also books that I am currently reading at this moment. But I'm not going to talk in great details those books that I have already finished because I actually plan on making individual videos for some of these books. So yep, definitely I hope that those videos will get made soon. So let's start with some of the books that I have finished. Alright, so the first one that I have finished was Kevin Chen's Ghost Town. This is a historical fiction / domestic fiction / gay fiction written by Kevin Chen, a Taiwanese author. Now, this book was originally written in Taiwanese and Chinese, and it was translated to English by Darryl Sterk. So basically the gist of this book is that we see the protagonist of the book named Keith. We find out that Keith has been locked up in a prison in Germany because he killed his he killed his boyfriend. And we the readers are left with the question of why did he do that crime? Like, why did he commit that murder? And so by the time we begin this book at the present time, Keith has already been released from prison and he returns to his hometown in Taiwan, which is a town called I think it's called Yongjing. So basically this town is like a rural small town, and we find out that he has other siblings as well. So basically he returns to his town and he sort of has a reunion with his siblings. But this is not exactly the focal point of this book, but rather as we learn more about Keith and also his other siblings, most notably his 4 sisters, Belinda, Betty, Beverly, and Barbie. We also learn about their childhood and their upbringing. We learn about what were their relationships with their parents and with the people around them who live close to them at Yongjing. We learn about what really happened in their childhood and what were the things, specifically kind of like what were the predominant attitudes that the people had around the time when they were growing up that sort of contributed to them being the kind of adults that they are right now. And so a lot of the topics that are kind of like are discussed in this book are things such as homophobia, misogyny, and also patriarchy, and how those things just really intersect with each other, and how they also intersect with class struggles as well, especially when it comes to the question of poverty, and to a certain extent political changes that happen where the characters live. It is a very interesting book. The way it is written is also very interesting. It has this kind of like ethereal quality to it. There is something that I didn't particularly enjoy about this book, and that is basically how the sisters are written. I recorded a video about this book, and that video should probably be up after this video, I think. I plan to upload this one first. So, or maybe I'm gonna upload that one first. I don't know. But anyway, I'm gonna have more of my thoughts in that video, so feel free to check that out. But overall, I think this book is a very rich, passionate novel, but at the same time it has a certain drawbacks that relate to how certain characters are written, especially the four sisters, which I think sort of detracted a little bit of my enjoyment from it. So yep, it to me, I sort of gave it 2 stars or so, probably about 2.5 stars as well, around that range. But yeah, it is still something worth reading, and I definitely recommend it to everyone. So the next one I finished was The Gate to Women's Country. This is by American author Sheri Tepper. This is a science fiction book, and it was, I don't remember when it was published. It was published in 1988, I believe. So, The Gate to Women's Country is set in a post-apocalyptic world, sometime in the future, where we see the characters, they all live in a world that is where technology has mostly been wiped out due to due to a particularly devastating nuclear war. So basically, by the time we start this book and we see the present time of the characters, they have already lived through like centuries of this post-nuclear war environment. So basically, the world in which the characters live in is kind of peculiar also. Basically, the society has decided that, you know, because of the nuclear war that has happened many years ago, where at that time most of the people who ruled were men, and so the rule of men eventually led to that particularly devastating nuclear war. And so the society just thought, okay, you know what, why don't we let women rule this time? And so they live in this society where women dominate the governance, whereas men act sort of like as soldiers, basically. So men could just be their kind of like brutal selves and be soldiers and protect this the society called Women's Country. So there's some kind of segregation going on in this particular society. Women, most of them, well, not most of them, all of the women would live in this area called Women's Country, and in that country there would be like a few towns, and then surrounding these towns would be men who protect those towns basically from bandits and from each other. Yeah, so central to this book is one particular character named Stavia. So Stavia is kind of like the audience surrogate character, where we kind of see we through, you know, whose point of view allow us to get introduced or get acquainted to this world, which is kind of interesting. Has a little bit of that dystopian nature as well, but it's all, you know, interestingly enough, is also painted as some kind of utopian in this book as well. And and one of the central kind of like conflict in the plot of this book involves some kind of a brewing discontent or brewing rebellion that is happening among the soldiers who are guarding these towns. And basically the plot kind of follows you know, that the development of that and how the people in Women's Country respond to it. Some characters in the Women's Country respond to it. But at the same time, this book also discusses things that are very, very interesting to me, such as gender determinism, which is something that this society is based on. Um, and that particular aspect, I think, of the book is quite thought provoking, because anything that is like based on determinism to me just always kind of feels like invites tons of questions, invites tons of scrutiny. But I think having a book that used that as some kind of the basis of a thought experiment, I think it's very interesting. Basically, this idea that men or boys are born to be certain ways, girls are born to be certain ways. Men and women are fundamentally different because of how they are born, and that is why it is fair to segregate these two groups of people in the society, blah blah blah. And I think the way that this book discusses that is kind of interesting, and quite engaging as well. Yeah, so I enjoyed this book. I will most likely going to talk about this book in greater detail later. Have a single video dedicated for it. So yeah, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Now the next book I finished, which was like the last book I finished. I did not finish any book after this one. Was a 5-star read. So this is Muriel Sparks' Memento Mori. This would be my 4th book by Muriel Spark. And my experience with Muriel Spark has been really, inconsistent. Like, I really love The Prime of Miss Jane Brodie, but I absolutely, I wouldn't say I loathed it, but I just did not enjoy The Driver's Seat at all. I couldn't get that book. So, but this one was probably the best book that I've read from Muriel Spark so far. So Memento Mori is about this group of rich old British people living in London, and one day one of them receives a phone call that reminds her that to remember that she must die. So this old lady, when she receives this call, she obviously becomes upset. She's worried about it. She talks about it with her brother, and she hopes that the police is going to investigate what's going on. By the way, I just kind of want to mention that this book was published in 1959, so the story most likely is set in like the if I'm not mistaken, sometime in the 50s, I would say. Sometime around that time. But anyway, this old lady is just kind of like really upset about this phone call, and but eventually, it's not just this old lady, but her the other old elderly people in her circle begin receiving this phone call as well. Some of them and basically we see how they respond to this phone call. But what's interesting about that is this series of phone call that these elderly characters receive is not the main thing in this book. We eventually learn, as they're kind of like as they're sort of responding to these phone calls, we also learn more about these characters, and we learn that their lives, but their lives when they were younger was filled with drama. And this drama was something that they carried all the way until like they're at their current age. And so despite having this kind of very bizarre thing happening to them, these incidents with the phone call happening to them, they continued carrying on with whatever petty drama that they have, and some of them are focusing on things such as securing more money. For example, like some of the characters in this book, their main motivations are just kind of like trying to get rich, trying to get money and stuff like that. So it leads to kind of like more very interesting interaction between these characters, more drama basically, and so it kind of has this. For me, this book just kind of feel like a somewhat of an absurd story of elderly people, despite their advanced age, still engage in dramatic behaviors with each other. Yeah, and there are also other things that are happening in this book as well concerning the characters, and so this book has layers of drama in its narrative, but at the same time there's also this kind of like constant reminder, so to speak, like both in a literal and also figurative sense, that of death. Discussions about aging and death is very much prominent in this book, and might I say the writing is also very funny. It is, I find myself giggling a lot from time to time when I was reading this book. So this book was highly entertaining. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I think most likely also I'm going to have a single book talk video for Memento Mori. So those are the books that I have finished so far. I'm just going to talk very briefly about the books I'm currently reading at this moment. So I'm starting with this one. This is something that I'm buddy reading with Nnedi, of Nnedi Magpie's Reads. This is Nnedi Okorafor's Akata Witch, which is a contemporary YA novel. And I gotta say, it's not something that I'm very much familiar with, that realm of the bookish world. And I feel like I'm in this process of recalibrating my expectation on this book, because I'm also reading books of other styles, mostly adult fiction, which is something that I usually read anyway. And so the language in here, I find it to be very different, which, duh, obviously. So Akata, which is about this young girl of age 12, I think. She is Nigerian American, and her name is Sunny, and she has a condition of albinism. So basically, Sunny lives with her family in Nigeria after living in America for quite some time, but currently she's living in Nigeria, and because of her physical appearance, she has had trouble in life, basically in school, especially when it comes to socializing. And so apart from that, she also has other issues with her family, with her basically with her family and also friends, and things are just kind of difficult for her as a young teenager. But then one day she meets some friends, or rather she made friends with some people of her age, and she discovers that she has some magical side. So what is the nature of her magic? I think that is kind of interesting. This book delves into a fantasy world that is very much based on African mythology, and I find that to be something that is quite fresh to me, because it's not something that I'm very much familiar with. So this is quite interesting. Lindy and I, we plan to read this book over a span of 3 weeks, so we have sort of divided this book into 3 sections. So I just finished reading like the first section, the first third of this book. Not the first section, but the first third of this book, according to our schedule. Now, the next book that I'm currently reading, which I actually hope to finish tonight, but I don't think I could because I'm going to rest, is The Well of Loneliness by Radclyffe Hall. I like this book. I really like it. I feel like I am probably going to give this one 5 stars, unless if something really, really dramatic happens at the last 90-something pages. I would Yeah, I would very likely give this book 5 stars. So this book is about a woman named Stephen Gordon, who lives in the I would say who. This book is set around the early 1900s, so around 1910s. You know, that time period before the First World War. So we follow this woman called Stephen Gordon, a British woman, and well, basically she's a lesbian, and we see how her life just sort of develops since she's a child all the way until she's an adult, and all of the struggles that she faces, coming to terms with who she is. And at that time period, who she is sort of referred to as an invert. And yeah, basically this book is just kind of like her struggles in accepting herself and how the people around her sees her once they know the reality of who she is. And I just find this book to be a really lovely one. The writing style is elegant, and I've been enjoying it immensely. There are certain parts of this book that definitely feel kind of like you can definitely sense get this sense of dread reading it, because you know that things that are going to happen to the main character is not always going to be all sunny and cheery. But at the same time, you feel like you can also feel like a sense of strong intimacy with a character, because you get a lot of inner voice and reflection of the character, even though the book is narrated through a third-person narrator. So yeah, love this book, and I hope to finish this one hopefully tomorrow, or maybe the day after tomorrow, I don't know. But soon. And so I'm just going to briefly mention this one. I'm also and this one is something that I kind of feel surprised by. I picked up a book by Michel Houellebecq. Yeah. This one is Serotonin. This book was originally written in French, translated to English by Shaun Whiteside. This would have been the third book by Michel Houellebecq that I am attempting. The first 2 books, I did not like them, because, I don't know, maybe I was just a little bit too young at the time, and so I didn't really catch certain things. I don't know, I might try those books again. But this one, I've only read like the first 2 chapters, so not a lot. It's about this guy who is, I'm just gonna read what it says at the back. Dissatisfied and discontent, Florent Claude Labrousse feels he is dying of sadness. His young girlfriend hates him, and his career as an engineer at the Ministry of Agriculture is pretty much over. His only relief comes in the form of a pill, white oval small. Recently released for public consumption, Captorix is a brand of antidepressant which works by altering the brain's release of serotonin. So I feel like this book is going to have a bit of a satirical bent, and it's going to have some kind of commentary, and the main character being is he middle-aged? Yeah, I think he's kind of about middle-aged. I think about a middle-aged guy who is dissatisfied with his life. After reading a few pages into this book, I could definitely sense that satirical bent, which I think was probably present in books like Atomized as well, but I probably did not notice that. But yeah, this guy is someone who is described as dissatisfied, not only with his life and also his girlfriend. And the way he is written in that first few pages just felt so over the top. Like, this guy is someone who is very much feels like a stereotypical red pill dude who would relate so much with, I don't know, the manosphere content. And I must say, I think this character is very interesting, and I'm quite surprised by that. I'm quite surprised by the fact that I'm saying that this character is kind of interesting. So I hope that this book is going to be enjoyable. I mean, I hope every book that I read is going to be enjoyable. But who knows? There's times the charm. So maybe this time I will enjoy something by Michel Houellebecq. So yeah, I guess those are the only things I want to talk about in this video. Let me know what you're currently reading at this moment, and if you have read any of the books that I mentioned in this video. Yeah, other than that, I'll see you again in a different video. So until then, take care. Thanks for watching, and bye.